Hello, minasan. It's Misako. I hope you're having a wonderful day or evening wherever you are. Today's video is actually going to be a two-part video, so this will be the first part. We're actually doing a special request I had from one of my subscribers where they wanted a kimono tutorial to kind of focus more on traditional kimono as opposed to how I do it for my henshin. If you look back further in my channel, I have a whole tutorial that shows my process for doing kimono with henshin, which is a few extra steps. So this video focuses on how to wear traditional kimono. So we decided to do this really pretty tomesode style kimono. This style of pattern is a komon, since it's an all-over pattern. This is considered a more casual style kimono, casual to like business casual. This one's got these really pretty maple leaves on it. I love maple leaves. As well as its gold obi to go with it. Again, this is a very simple style kimono. So I wanted to showcase something that I would wear traditionally just to go out, maybe to a nice restaurant or a casual event. So just for something kind of fun. So this is my process of how I do it. Everybody kind of has their own little ways to do things. This is how I learned to do it. So there may be some variations depending on how you've learned or where you learned from, but this is my style and how I learned. Kimono is a process. It is a lot to learn. It's not a garment that you can just throw on and go. It's a very meticulous process with thought in every movement, in every fold, in everything you do. So it's a labor of love. When you wear kimono, it makes you feel elegant and beautiful, but it also makes you feel accomplished because it was a process to put on. It's quite a feat. So if you find it difficult, please give yourself some grace. It takes a lot of practice. Even to get to where I am, it has taken me a lot of practice to get to this point. I started out with learning yukata, which is the traditional summer kimono, which I also have a tutorial for that as well. I recommend starting with yukata because they're very user-friendly and very easy for beginners. But even when you graduate to doing traditional kimono, again, please give yourself grace. It is a process. And even with what I've learned, I'm always looking to improve my Kitsuke or kimono styling. So it's always a process where you're trying to learn more. You always want to improve. There's always room for improvement. So it's an ever-growing journey with kimono. So again, please give yourself some grace. But yes, this first part of the video does focus on putting on the kimono as well as the Nagajuban and the undergarments that would go with the kimono. So first part, I'm going to talk about the tools that you'll need for doing proper Kitsuke or kimono styling. I'm not dressed up for that part, so please excuse my appearance, but I wanted to showcase the tools that you would need in order to get started to give yourself a traditional clean kimono look. You can do it without some of those tools, but I do recommend using the ones I talk about in the video because it does help with the process. So if you can get those, as much of them as you can, it helps a lot. But again, you do not need to have every single one for this step. These are just my steps and what I use. And then the second video, we'll get into the obi. But for the first part, let's get started on our Kitsuke tools as well as starting the kimono process. Okay, so please forgive my disheveled appearance and this horrible lighting that's doing nothing for me. I wanted to do this part of the video really quick before I got dressed up, just to show you some of the tools that you'll need to get started for your Kitsuke, as well as the basic kimono elements. So I wanted to go over that really quick before we jump into the actual tutorial. So let's go over the first part that you're going to need, which is going to be the undergarments of the kimono. So we have a couple of different options for undergarments. Of course, if you don't have access to either of these items, you can always just wear a tank top and like leggings or shorts or anything like that underneath. I do recommend wearing something underneath the kimono as it puts a layer of protection between you and the fabric, so it prevents any kind of like staining or sweat or any kind of damage. So I do recommend wearing something underneath besides just underwear. So if you don't have access to these, you can do a tank top or shorts or leggings, that's fine. But what I like to do underneath is a couple different options. This is one of the ones I like to do a lot. This is a simple dress slip. I've gotten this one on Amazon. I have many of these. They're very lightweight and breathable, and I love that they have adjustable straps. So I use this a lot under my kimono, especially in warm weather because it's a little bit lighter and more comfortable to wear. So just a very simple dress slip. As well as if you want to go a little more traditional, we have a Nagajuban, which is also a kimono undergarment. Has kind of like longer sleeves. It's got little, you can get it. It's got little straps on here usually, so you tie it in place. I'm gonna actually do this today for a more traditional look, and also this is better, of course, when it's like a little bit cooler out, gives a little bit of extra layers to help keep warm. Again, I kind of prefer this for summer, but for today's tutorial, we're going to do this. These can be found on Etsy, eBay, all kinds of shops online, but this is called a Nagajuban, and this would be your traditional kimono underwear. But if you don't have access to this, a dress slip will be perfectly acceptable. So now to get into some of the actual Kitsuke tools and what I wear underneath everything. So before I put on my slip, usually one of the items I like to have, and this is extra, you do not need to do this, but I like to do this, is I like to wear these sweat guards. Kind of looks like a little crop top. You put it on. It's got extra padding here in the underarm area to help collect sweat so it doesn't stain anything. I super love these. I'm actually a very sweaty person. I hate to admit it, but I sweat a lot, especially in the summertime. So to prevent any kind of sweat getting onto the kimono, I actually like to wear one of these under my kimono just to make sure we have that added protection. So I highly recommend one of these. Not required, but I like this just for extra protection. As well as I've got these Japanese style dish towels. So as you can see, I've got 2 of them here. I like to use these for padding in the middle. Not only does this help kind of give more of that cylindrical silhouette as opposed to curves, because with kimono we don't want curves, we want it to be just kind of up and down. This will help add that padding, as well as, again, I'm a sweaty person, so this helps kind of collect some of the sweat in the middle that may accumulate, especially because with the obi, there is a lot of heat coming off of that because the layers are so thick. So this does help a lot with that. You can use any kind of towels. I recommend kind of like the hand towels or dish towels, like medium length ones. You don't need a super big towel for this, but these are super helpful for adding padding as well as getting moisture. I usually secure it with this elastic stretchy Velcro band that I have. It's kind of like a summer datsujime, but you can use like any kind of stretchy belt or koshihimo belt as well to secure that. So either of those items would work. After that, one of the other items you'll need underneath is your tabi socks. So a couple different options here. I have my very traditional tabi socks, which you can see have what's called the kohaze, which is the little kind of fasteners on the side. These are very traditionally what we would wear with kimono. These ones I actually got on Amazon, so they were not too expensive, but they have different sizes. You can also see it's got like the thicker padding on the bottom because these are meant to be worn even without shoes. It's like if you wear them indoors and you don't have on shoes, so these are meant to go on the floor. So these are traditional tabi socks, you'll need those. Or if you don't like the traditional tabi socks or they're too snug or whatever, I do recommend giving them a try. But if you don't like them, another option you can do is actually a pair of stretchy ones. So I tend to use these more for my yukata in the summer, but because they're very, very informal. But I get it, if you don't like the tabi socks, they're too small or uncomfortable, I totally understand. So you could do these tabi socks, which are stretchy and they have the toe. These ones are very cheap on Amazon. Again, I really love these for wearing with my yukata because they're kind of thin, they're lightweight and stretchy, and they work great for warmer weather. But if you don't like traditional tabi socks, you can do a pair of these as well, and that will also work. So let's move on to some of the more advanced Kitsuke tools. So here's where stuff gets a little more specialized, and these are items that you'll absolutely need to get clean Kitsuke or kimono styling. Again, a lot of these can be found on Etsy or eBay and various shops online, but Etsy and eBay is usually a good place to look. So starting with the very basic element you'll need is these. These are your koshihimo belts. So they're usually kind of made of, I think, like cotton or linen, a woven material. These are what you're going to need to actually secure the kimono shut underneath all of the obi and everything like that. So this is what you'll need for all of those parts. Traditionally, I like to have 4 because I go through a few different ones. I'll need 2 for the kimono itself and 1 for the Nagajuban, which I'll go over that later in this video. I also like to have an extra one for when doing the obi as a temporary tie. So I usually have about 4 or 5 that I have just to keep things secured. So you'll need, I want to say 4, 5 if you want an extra one. We're also going to need something called a datajime, and I have 2 that I use. You don't have to use 2, I just like an extra one for the Nagajuban, but you will need at least 1. I've got 2 different kinds. We have our traditional datajime, which is like a thick belt that has these kind of looser parts on it, as well as a Velcro one. So these are a little easier to use as opposed to having to tie this if you want something a little more adjustable. Both are adjustable, but some people find this one a little better. This is the one I actually use for my juban, or Nagajuban, underneath, so just to kind of flatten it out a little bit. And then this is the one I tend to use for the actual kimono itself because I can kind of tighten it a bit more. You'll need this to kind of help flatten things out and give more of a stiffer frame after you do the koshihimo. So you will need at least 1 of these, a datajime. You're also going to need something called an obi-ira. So this is like the hard board that goes across that helps to give structure to the obi and kind of stiffen it and give a more flat look. There's 2 different kinds of obi-ira. I use both when I'm doing my kimono, but you do not have to. So what I like to use initially is one of these that's got the little straps here on it and the little hook. This is nice because when you put it on, it kind of holds its shape here because you don't have to try and adjust it. Everything's already kind of tied together. So this is usually what I start with underneath. And then we also have an obi-ira that's just a board. This one's like plastic, but some have like the fabric. Either one is fine. This one you would actually slip into the obi as you're doing the process. I actually use this at the very end just to add a little bit more stiffness to it, but I initially like to use this. If you're only going to use one obi-ira, if you don't have access to both, I actually kind of recommend with the straps more because I just think it's a little more user-friendly, especially if you're a beginner. So I recommend that. You're also going to need an obi-makura, or obi pillow. So this isn't always required depending on the kind of musubi or obi knot that you're doing. Today's video I'm going to focus on otaiko musubi, which is the most traditional style musubi, so you will need an obi-makura for that. It's like a pillow with these kind of like straps. I've used a hair tie to kind of secure mine so it doesn't come undone. You're going to need this to add padding in the back where the obi is and help kind of fill it out and hold it up. So you will need one of these. You will also need an erishin, which is going to be a collar stiffener. So this is what we're going to slip into the Nagajuban to help hold that nice stiff shape and get that dip in the back. So you will need one of these as well. They're like a hard plastic. And then last little thing you're going to need is your kimono clips. So I've got a set of 2 to 3 of them. I'm just using 2 today because I don't need a third one for what I'm doing. But you will need at least 2. You can see they're made of metal and they have kind of like a rubbery inside so that way it doesn't damage the kimono. These are extremely helpful when doing the collar as well as doing the obi. So again, you do not have to use them, but I highly recommend them if you can because they do make things a lot easier with temporarily holding things in place while you're trying to get stuff adjusted. So that's a lot of what you're going to need for doing proper Kitsuke. Not every single item in this list is a requirement, but this is what I use to do my Kitsuke to make it easier and give a better shape. So the last part of this section of the video, we're going to talk about the actual elements you need for your kimono. So now we've moved on from the Kitsuke tools onto the actual kimono parts themselves. So starting with the first one is our Nagajuban. So let me grab that. That's going to be this item here. So this is what you're going to wear underneath the kimono. I'm doing a tomesode style kimono today with the shorter sleeves, so I'll need shorter sleeves for that look. The same steps apply for furisode, but we're just focusing on tomesode today because I'm doing a more traditional look. So you will need one of these. This has the white collar, and they come in all kinds of different patterns and colors and materials. This is I think this one's polyester, it's synthetic. This is just a simple pink one that we're doing today with a very simple white collar. You can always layer the collar with like a haneri to get like designs or whatever, like a spare collar. I just keep my stuff really simple, so I just like to do plain white, but you can add a haneri decorative collar if you want. I usually skip that step because I'm just old-fashioned. The erishin I talked about, this is the part that's going to go into the collar to stiffen it later. So that's where this is going to go. But you will need a Nagajuban. And then of course, we will need kimono. So this is the kimono we're doing today. This one's also a synthetic polyester kimono. I like this one because it's got maple leaves on it. I love maple leaf motifs. So this is the other item we'll need, obviously, is our kimono. So don't forget this. And then moving on to the last part is the obi. So last parts we need are for the obi. So there's 3 different parts you'll need. You'll need one of these, which is a obi-jime. This is going to be the cord that goes around the middle. All kinds of different colors, designs. Some are round, some are flat like this one. Just depends on your preference and the look for what you're going for. But you will need an obi-jime, as well as you will need an obiage. That's going to be this item right here. It's like a long sash. Usually it's got like a space here in the middle. This is what's going to cover the obi makura, or that obi pillow, because those straps are still kind of visible. So all of the obiage does is just simply cover those straps and give a more finished, elegant look. So you will absolutely need an obiage. This does not need to be tied tightly. In fact, don't, because you don't want to damage this. This is made of silk and very delicate. But this is, again, meant to just kind of fold over and cover up the straps of the obi makura, so it gives it a more finished look. And of course, we have our obi. So this is the one I'm going with today. It's kind of like a brassy color with some different kind of floral and bird motifs on it. I really like this one. This is a fukuro style obi. So this is the very long piece of fabric you would traditionally use to do otaiko style musubi. Again, there's different kinds of obi, like hanhaba obi, or you can even do pre-tied obi or tsukuri obi. But we're going to focus on doing a very traditional simple look with the otaiko musubi, which will need a fukuro style obi for that. So that is the other item we need. So with that, let's get started on the tutorial finally. Okay, so now we're ready to get started. So I have come back with my makeup and my hair done so I don't look so troll-like, a little bit more presentable. As well as I've already put on my Nagajuban, which is the slip that goes under the kimono. And you can't quite see, but I do have my sweat guard underneath here as well. So I put that on before I put on the Nagajuban. And I've also got my padding already on, the dish towels that I like to use with the stretchy bands. So that way this absorbs some sweat, but also it helps give a little bit more padding to that area so we can have a more cylindrical look. So we've already started with that. So the next step is going to be the Nagajuban. So here we have our Nagajuban, which is going to be our first layer of the kimono. I have this, as well as we have a koshihimo belt to secure the Nagajuban. I've also got my extra datejime that I'm going to use. You do not have to do this step, but I like to just kind of flatten it a bit, but I've got this one. As well as our collar stiffener or enshin that we'll need for the collar. So first thing we're going to do is take our juban, and usually at the bottom you'll see there's kind of like at the collar there's an opening. That's where you're going to want to slip this in. So you're going to take this and gently slip it in, and then just guide it. And be gentle, because a lot of these collars are like kind of basted on with like a simple stitch, so you don't want to pull too hard. These collars are oftentimes replaceable. You can get fresh ones if it gets damaged or stained and put new ones on. But I try to be as careful as possible because I'm not as good at sewing as my mother was, so I don't like to damage the collars if I don't have to. And we're just going to make sure that we get it even. Get a little more on this side. Yeah, looks good. So now, as you can see, this collar is a much better shape, so this is an absolute must. When I was first starting out with kimono, there were a few times I did forget to do this step, but it is important because it does give it a much better appearance. So we're going to go ahead and put this on. And make sure when you put your arms through the holes, you'll notice some kimono oftentimes have like an opening down here. It'll be like kind of like a stitch here and then an opening. Make sure it's the top opening. Do not put your hand through the bottom opening. But you should have it like this. And then the next step is going to be to tie the Nagajuban with our koshihimo. Important thing to remember, very important when you're doing kimono. is when you're wrapping the kimono, it's always left over right. Always left over right. Never do right over left. The only time you would ever see that is for the deceased at a funeral. They're usually wearing the all-white kimono and laid out for display. That is the only time you will ever see that. So always, always left over right. The way I was taught to remember it was the phrase leftover rice. So always remember leftover rice, leftover rice, leftover right. So what we're gonna do is I'm going to take the Nagajuban. You can kind of find the center seam in the back here. We're just gonna kind of dip it a little bit. You can find this seam and gently kind of pull and take the front end like this, because we want this collar to dip just a little bit in the back. You do not want it up here. You want it to dip just a little bit. Depending on how far you want it, I feel like I was explained that the general rule is about a 3-finger width, but some people like to do it much deeper. Some people like to do it a little bit closer to the neck. It just depends on how far you want to go. When I do my geisha henshin, I dip the collar pretty far back because traditionally it's like way back here. But that's a little much for a regular kimono. So we're just gonna have a little bit of a dip. And then again, remember, left over right. So we're gonna do our right side first and then left, just like that. Make sure our collar's got a good dip, and then when you have it where you want it, take your koshihimo, and we're going to put it around like this. And then in the back, you can see, we're going to overlap it like this, and we're going to pull. That way you can tighten it. You don't need to tighten it so much, don't do it so you can't breathe. But you do want to tighten a little bit because you do not want your kimono to come undone. So you want to make sure that you do tighten it somewhat. And then we're going to just tie it in a simple bow, like that. And then I take the pieces and just kind of tuck them into the sash like this, because we want these out of the way. So it should look somewhat like this. And then you can kind of go through and adjust the collar a little bit. I like to kind of pull down, as well as gently kind of start evening out the back a little bit. You'll see it's kind of bunched up. It doesn't have to be perfect. No one's gonna see this part of the kimono, but try to smooth it out as much as you can. You can take your fingers here and kind of put them up into the sash like this, and then just kind of gently pull forward toward the armpit area and just kind of smooth it out a little bit. Again, it does not need to be perfect, but try to smooth it out as much as you can. We're just gonna make sure the collar looks good, just like that. And then last step I'm gonna do, again, this is optional, you don't have to do it, but I'm gonna take my Dakijime, my Velcro one, and I'm going to wrap it around like this. And then, simply Velcro in place like that. So you don't have to do that step, but it just kind of flattens things out, and I kind of like the silhouette a little bit better. And that is how we do the Nagajuban. So next, we can move on to actually starting the kimono process. Also really quick, I forgot to mention, I already have my tabi socks on, as you can see. So those I put on before I did anything else. That's one of the first steps I put on. Once you have your kimono on and ready to go, it's kind of hard to bend over, so you won't really be able to get your tabi socks on very effectively at that point. So please make sure that is the first step you do before doing anything else. Putting on your slip, put on your socks first. Okay, so we have our kimono. So some things to keep in mind, and bear with me because I kind of have limited space, so I'm going to try to back up as much as I can. I've got my mirror in front of me right here so I can see, but I also want to be able to let you see the whole process. So keep in mind, kimono are very long. That is very normal because we have to adjust the length to whatever height we are. That's part of the beauty of kimono, is it's versatile so that it can fit multiple heights. So do not ever tailor this. I see people that get kimono and they think, oh, it's too long, and they like get it hemmed. Do not do that, please. You ruin the kimono when you do that. Please leave it alone. If you want to take an older kimono and repurpose it to be worn in a more traditional way, like, not a traditional way, but like a more conventional way, then that's fine. Especially if it's a piece that's got damage on the ends, then I see a lot of people do that to make it more of like a cardigan or a long jacket, and that's fine. But if you want to wear kimono in the traditional sense, like we're doing today, do not get it hemmed. Please leave it alone. Also, you'll notice the collar is pretty wide. We're going to be actually folding that in half. We do not want to leave that open like that because the collar would be too wide. So we are going to fold that in half. A lot of kimono come with little fasteners up here. Some don't, depends on the kimono, but a lot of them do have these little metal fasteners right here. So we're going to go ahead and just snap that shut. That's going to help us with guiding where our collar should be. So we're going to go ahead and put the kimono on. When you put your hands through the sleeves, grab the end of your Nagajuban like this and pull through, and then let it fall into the bottom of the sleeve. Same thing on the other side. We're going to put our hand through, let the sleeve fall, and you can kind of zhuzh it out a little bit there. And now we've got our collar, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull back a little bit here because we want that to be lined up with the Nagajuban that we have underneath. So make sure in the front, these ends down here are even. I use these as a guide to let me know where the collar's at, so try to even it up. Make sure our collar is even with the fold. And then what I like to do is take our kimono clips that I have right here. I just kind of tie one on the end here for a minute because we're gonna use these to help kind of secure the collar before we work on that part. So try to line your collar up. To where you want it. And then we're gonna take our clip, and in the back, we're just gonna clip it like that because we're gonna come back and undo that later. This is just to kind of help it stay in place for now until we make our adjustments later. And it's hard to see from the back. There we go, perfect. I oftentimes see people do just the one in the center. I have a hard time reaching back that far since I get shoulder pain. So if you can do that, great, but if not, I kind of use two on this side. So the next thing we're gonna do is start measuring the kimono. So I'm gonna kind of tilt my camera down just a little bit, so it is hard to see. This part, we're going to need 2 koshihimo for this. So go ahead and have the one ready. And please excuse all the coughing, I have allergies today. So as you can see on the inside of the kimono, there's several seams. You see this one right here, right by my hip? That's your center seam. We want that behind us in the center. You'll notice these 2 seams on the side. I use these as a guide to show the center of the kimono. That way I know where I'm supposed to be. And as you can see, this thing is trailing because it's very long. So we're going to take the kimono and kind of grab it by the ends here like this. And we're going to lift up. And you'll get kind of like this fold of fabric like this where you've got like the tension right here. That's fine, we want that fold. So go ahead and let that hang over. But we're gonna lift up. And we want this to hit about where our ankles are. You don't want to do it too high. You don't want to do it too low. So try to look in your mirror and make sure it's hitting about where your ankles are. You can take your left side, kind of fold it over like this so you can kind of see about where it's falling and where you need to adjust it. So if it needs to come down a little more, shows about right there. I do tend to sometimes wear my kimono up just a little bit higher by 1 inch or so if I'm going to be outside and I know the weather's really bad and I don't want to get like damage on the bottom of the kimono. I've been known to kind of wear it just slightly higher, but you don't want it too high. But we're going to wear it a little bit lower today since we're indoors and not having to go outside. And then once we do that, we're going to again start with our right side because we want right over left. The left here is just a guide to show where we're putting it. But we're going to start with our right side, like this. And then kind of tuck here. You're going to use your elbow on the other side to kind of hold this in place temporarily while we bring it around. Don't get your sleeve caught like I did. Like this. Keep that elbow in the side so we don't lose that space. And then you'll see we have some excess fabric. Make sure you're holding this because you don't want to let go. But you'll feel when we've got that excess fabric. That's fine, we're going to fold that over later. So we're going to take our koshihimo that I have caught here. Okay. And same thing as we did with the Nagajuban before. We're going to kind of lift the fabric up a little bit. Hold in the center. Come around. Make sure you've got that extra fabric up here. Cross over like that. And then pull. Not too tight, just tight enough. We don't want to suffocate ourselves. I apologize, you probably hear scratching on the other side of the door. That's my cat trying to get in. He is banned from the room for the time being. And then we're going to take that, and just like we did before, we're going to tie it in a bow. He's crying at the door, but I'm like, nope, cannot come in right now, buddy. And then we're going to tuck it in just like we did before, because we don't want those parts to be shown. I do have it a little high up, so I'm probably going to adjust it here. But this is about what it should look like with this extra fabric that we have around the kimono. So the next step is going to be adjusting this fold. So now we have all this extra fabric, so we need to do, I believe it's called the ohashori, which is that fold that you see that kind of helps adjust the kimono. I'm going to tilt my camera up just a little bit since we don't have to see the bottom so much anymore. Maybe just a little more. All right, cool. So we have to fix this. So we're going to take our hands, and inside the armpit area, you'll notice there's like space here. You can actually put your hands in here on both sides. And I just kind of do this because we're going to adjust that collar. I feel like I put this one a little far back. Let me try to readjust it here. And then in the back, same thing. We're going to put our hands into these spots here and just kind of pull down a little bit so we can start fixing that fabric. And then this is the part where we can kind of adjust the collar a little bit as well while we go through and kind of even out the folds. And this process does take a minute. I'm a little picky, so I'm trying to get it right. But take all your time. Kimono is something that is not a fast process. So at this point, I usually take out the clips because I'm ready to adjust the collar, but you can leave them in until you're done with tying the koshihimo. It's up to you. I usually take them out at this point because I'm going to adjust the collar while I get ready to tie everything in place. And remember, left over right, just like we did before. And you do not want the collar to be too wide open, but you don't want it to be too tight. How much white you want showing depends on your personal preference. I've seen some people where they have a little more showing, or some like that's completely covered up. But you do want a little bit of it showing, not too much, not too little. So there's kind of like a happy medium. And then once I've got this where I want it, and that looks good, about like that. We're going to, again, kind of hold things in place. Take our other koshihimo, and same thing as we did before. We're gonna tie it in the middle, cross it over in the back, tighten, like that. And then tie into a bow. And tuck in like this. So that it's all tucked in. And then kind of like what we did with our Nagajuban, we're gonna even out the back a little bit because you do want it to get as flat as possible. So we're going to gently take our fingers like this and kind of pull forward toward the armpit area so we can kind of start smoothing that out. And be gentle, don't pull too hard because you can damage the seams. You just kind of want to gently smooth it out. So we have it like this. So the other thing to keep in mind with the ohashori here is sometimes if the kimono is really long, you might have a lot of extra fabric. You can take a spare koshihimo belt. This is why I said maybe have 5 if you need a spare. You can kind of fold this up just a little bit to kind of get more of an even line, especially if it's kind of at like a tilt. And then that way you can tie this in place to get a more even look. This kimono is not too long, so I'm just gonna kind of leave this alone today, but I've had ones where I've kind of had to tie it up because it is a little long. Sometimes I leave it longer just because I like the way it looks, it just depends. But if you want it to look a little more tidy or to finish that, you can kind of pull that up a little bit on every side and then just tie it in place. Once you've done that and you're satisfied, we can take our datejime. I'm using this one that's got the thicker part in the middle. Same thing as we did with the koshihimo. We're gonna center it and then overlap in the back like we did before. Pull. And then instead of tying it into a bow, we're gonna actually just tie this into a knot like that. And then I'm just going to take the sashes and kind of twirl them around like this because we're gonna tuck them into the sides here. Same thing on the other side. You can also alternatively tuck them up into here as well. But we do not want these hanging. So we're going to just kind of twirl it around like that. So it is out of the way. And this helps flatten this area so we can get it ready for the next step, which is going to be the obi-ira. So if you're going to skip this step to use the obi-ira that does not have the straps on it, you don't need to do this part. I prefer to use this one because again, I just find it a little easier to do, especially if you're a beginner or you just want something that's a little easier, just a little tighter. We're going to take this and we're going to wrap it around the center, and there's a little hook that we're just gonna slide on like that. And I kind of slide it this way just so I can see the hook really quick. So we've hooked it. And then slide back around. So that way we've got our obi-ira board to start with. And then we're going to start on doing the obi. So I'm gonna actually do that in the next video since this is a long video already. So this process just shows the Nagajuban and the kimono itself. So in the next video, I will show you guys how to actually do an otaiko style musubi to go with this tomesore style komon kimono. So at this point, thank you so much for watching the video. Arigatou gozaimasu, and I'll see you on the next one. Arigatou.